I'm Natalia Loback, founder and principal of Charthouse Advisory Services and Connected Change. This is Change, the Conversation, and I am continuing this week with Dipal Damani of D&D Inclusion Consulting to pick up where we left off last week and continue our conversation about the incredible work that she is doing in diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. Stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did.
Often when we're embarking on a big organizational shift, especially when it has to do with culture, because so much of the work that you're talking about has to do with the way the organization operates, which isn't like necessarily some process or some procedure or some policy that's written. It's about how that lives out. So how do people speak to each other? How do they treat each other? What is the culture and that fabric of the organization? When we're changing those things, those are highly emotional, highly charged conversations and interactions. And, you see, like we talked about, that fear coming in. Often I find, and I think there's an interesting gap between, what you're talking about, which is an organization says, we have something we want to investigate. We have something we need to do. Let's find out where we need to change. But then that whole piece around getting results that, they may not be entirely, they may not be aware of, right? We all have bias. We all have blind spots. You're definitely going to find things that you're not prepared for. How do you then go through that conversation and that journey, moving from, I've received something that I didn't expect or I'm not happy to see, to move to, yes, this is something we need to address and we are going to change it. That's a big emotional arc that people are going through.
Right.
Before they even get to the place of what are we going to do?
Yeah. No, you're right. And so much of this work is managing emotions. It really is managing emotions, and, just to kind of reiterate, what I said before is I think when you have a better understanding of yourself, right? Self-awareness, and I might just back it up a little bit more also and say, when you're more aware of your emotions, and your emotional state in this process, I think it can be helpful in terms of digesting the audit process and the findings of the audit as well, because you are right. It is very much an emotional process. Emotions run high through this, and I think rather than disassociate ourselves from the emotions through this, it's important to connect into them and go ask ourselves, why am I feeling this way? Is it fear that's stirring this up? Is it because I'm going to be called a racist through this, right? I mean, exactly. Let's just be honest here, right? I hear this.
That doesn't mean that I'm not a good person, right?
And I think it's so important, again, to have that preparation in advance, that an audit is not to tell you you're a racist. An audit is not to tell you that, you're not a good person. That's not the purpose. The purpose of the audit is to tell you, as an organization, as a whole, where are those opportunities for change? And so I think if we come at this by removing our personal selves from the audit and looking at it from a collective as an organization, and as an organization, how do we move through this change process? I think we move to a better place where we can then be more accepting of the findings of an audit. So yes, emotions run high through this process. I think it's so important to tap into our emotions on the audit process and to really feel deep, like, why am I feeling this way? And to work through those emotions. And maybe you need to work through those emotions with the consultant too. But then to kind of start to change the perspective, right? That this audit's not about me personally. Yes, I may be the CEO, the executive director, part of the senior leadership team, but this is not a personal attack on me. This is more so as an organization and as the leader and the helm of this organization. I set the tone, I set, the direction. So how can I start to change the tone and direction of this organization? And so to think of the organization as a collective, and that, and I will reiterate that as the CEO, the executive director, senior leadership team, they're the ones that can lead that change effort and guide that change effort. It's to look at the senior leadership team as a collective. How do we collectively?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And you're so right, because anytime we're looking at cultural change, it is leadership driven and collective leadership driven. We could probably do a whole other conversation on power structures in organizations. I know that's
too.
when I talk about a lot.
Yeah.
But this idea that when you have leadership, it's a centralized power. And that is where, if you're looking at a power locus to change culture, to change the way the organization functions, to impact and change the collective organization, it really comes from leadership. And that's kind of how it then, they set the standard, they set the behaviors, they set what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in the organizational environment. And so, tapping into that collective power of leadership for change is, it's incredible. You can do so many good things.
And I just want to make the point, Natalia, where you mentioned the power imbalance, and you're right. I think it's such an important point to also have at the forefront when doing a audit change process, is to understand as a leader where you are in that power imbalance. That is so important, is understanding, yes, I am at the top of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
I inhibit this, power imbalance. I understand that. I exert a lot of power and influence in this organization. And to really understand that. Because once you do, I think that then really helps you to engage with your organization at a more authentic level. And that's where you get results, is when you're able to engage with your organization at a more authentic level. You are then able to be more accepting of, findings and more willing to engage with folks who may not see the same type of organization you're seeing.
Yes.
So very good point on power imbalance. That is so important and integral to this type of work. Absolutely.
I am just so thrilled with the conversation we've had today. Thank you so much, Dipal. And I hope for all of you watching that you will check out D&D Inclusion Consulting and learn a bit more about Dipal and what she can do for your organization, because the time is now, and this is imperative work to be done in every organization. So thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you, Natalia. It was such a great conversation, and hope to have many more as well. So thank you.